Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. This episode is dedicated to my grandfather, who passed away yesterday. I have decided to give this lecture to honor his presence and his memory. Okay. All right, guys. Today was the first time my parents called me at 6 a.m. I went to my grandfather's house, and the first thing I did when I entered the house, aside from hugging everybody and hugging my mother, I went and I did wuzu. Wuzu is an Islamic cleansing. And I went into the room, and there was a white cloth over him. And the moment I entered the room, I saw the devastation, emotional devastation in the moment. And so when I went there, I came out of the after cleansing myself, I went into the room. So when I go into the room, my mother was leading me to the room, and she pulls the cloth, and I see my grandfather's face, and he had passed away 2 a.m. And in that moment, I just raised my hands in the air, and on the drive to my grandfather's place, there was one idea, just one image in my mind, because my parents had not told me that he had passed away. They just said, quickly come here. I went into that room, and there was a moment I saw his body like an empty vehicle. I raised my hands in the air, and what I didn't mention, On the way driving there, the idea was that when I go there, I should just sit in a corner and just put my attention on the one and only system administrator. And when I went in that room and I saw my grandfather, I saw his body, I raised my hands in the air and just with pure concentration, I started to the best of my ability focusing on the system admin. It was as if some parts of my life and memories left, and I went directly to the system admin. And in that moment, I also told my grandfather, go directly to the system admin, go directly to God, Ya Allah. And as I did this, my hands were in the air. I felt something, guys. I felt something equivalent to like an intense wind coming from behind me, okay? And so I left the room, and what I hadn't mentioned to you guys was like a week before, my grandfather had dementia, okay? And he died on a religious date. He was a religious man, something that perhaps the secular audiences don't understand, that there are people living like this. He was, this episode is in honor of him. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. O Lord of the worlds, guide us all and protect us all on our journeys towards your remembrance. And bless my grandfather's path. I do have an understanding from the Islamic context of what happens after death. There's an interesting idea, and not an idea, the view is this, that after the soul leaves the body, it has three companions: its family, its wealth, and the person's good deeds. And once the soul is lifted up from the grave, and once the last members of the family leave, the two companions leave, and the only companion left in the other side was your good deeds. But what are good deeds? Good deeds are service to the truth. What is truth? Since truth on this earth for human beings is beyond form, the best access close to truth is trust. You know, when I say in honor of my grandfather, I am also saying in honor of the one and only origin that led to all of this being here. You know, I thought death was a singular consideration, right? But in actuality, it is the world speaking to us, reminding us we're not always here. And while we were here, what was our task? What was our service? What mountains did we move that we could? Now, in honor of my grandfather, I will give you a summary of who he was. In his prime, he pioneered the first leather factory in Iran. He was a man who had five kids. He was a man who, when me and my twin brother were little and my parents would leave us in the to stay with my grandparents, there were religious days. There's a religious day in Iran called Ashura Tasua, and my grandparents would feed the neighborhood. And my grandfather had a unique status. Okay, I would see this as a kid. I would see this. It was as if it was the presence of the work of his lifetime. And he also had a very loud voice, and to tell you his presence in gatherings, it was like a giant stone column. That was his presence. He was a man of the old world where the modern generations cannot fathom. So he was a religious man. He would pray. Both my grandmother and grandfather, they were religious. They would always pray. They would even pray for us, me and my brother, while we were playing. And I remember, there's this memory of me and my twin brother being very young. I don't know how old, I think it was under 7. And we were wrestling with my grandfather. And it was such a playful moment. There's something that, as someone who was born in Iran, a theocratical society, and then coming to Western society, was in some sense the sacredness of where, let's say, the family unit originates from. It is forgotten easier in the West. So as someone being raised in Iran, I can tell you that it's as if there is a living relationship with one's ancestors. Not that they are here. Every person that leaves, they go towards God. And the idea does get deeper, that all the souls after this lifetime are waiting for the end of days, where the sky cracks and the horn is blown. When he was younger, he had 2 brothers. 2 of his brothers ended up becoming like pleasure-seeking, kind of thug-like personalities. At the age of 12, he got bored with what was going on, and for the first time, I'm telling you the story of my grandfather, right? At the age of 12, he goes and becomes an apprentice in a leather shoe shop that is run by my grandfather's uncle. Now, my grandfather's father was an architect, but at that time, being an architect was a simpler time. They showed me my great grandfather's tools and like his architect tools, and I was like blown, like how simple it was, yet it was sophisticated for the time. It was advanced for the time. And so at the age of 12, no internet, no massive information age, the information is just coming from the simple world. And he goes into a shoe shop, and he, at the age of 12, and he becomes an apprentice because he could read and write, and the store owner couldn't read and write. Do you understand? He could read and write at the age of 12. The person who was his uncle couldn't read and write, so he was like, all right, kid, record what the products that come in, like just write basic numbers. And so my grandfather, like he's repeated this story many times. What happens is he had something within him, like, I don't want to say a desire, but he had something within him that was not inhibiting him. What that means is if most human beings are born in this life and they're afraid, and let's say anxiety, stress, and all these forces are coming, right? He was freer. He was, honestly, in his whole life, he was so bold and so, like, literally bulldozer style of a person, right? That it was as if his lack of fear that didn't make him change made everybody in the room adjust to his solidified presence. But later on, I did find out that in his youth, there was, of course, anger in the household, okay, at that time, in regards to, like, my mother's and aunts and uncles' upbringing. But my family, especially my uncles and aunts, they weren't simple children either. They were anyways. My grandfather he goes on to tell the story, and this is what happened. So at the age of 12, he goes in and becomes an apprentice of some leather shop, okay, that his uncle is running. Then he learns the ropes. He learns the tricks of the trade, and he goes and he sets up his own shop, okay? And then he was telling me as if these were his victories. He was telling stories as if he was showing trophies, right? And so he told me that he goes and sets up his own shop, okay? And when he sets up his own shop, he realizes that all the other customers, all the other store owners in the bazaar, and to give you an idea, it's pretty much like 20 shops that all sell leather in the same area, okay? And in some sense, there's this thing that store owners would do where any store owner that didn't have a sale, they would put a chair outside of their store so the other store owners would send the customer that way. There is a decency in business, but people don't understand this because it's old world realism. But anyways, so he sets up his own business, and he realizes that all the store owners are waking up at 7 and getting to the shop at 8. But then he realizes the true customers that are having, like, caravan style, like, you know, just not. He realizes that the actual customers that want bulk sales are actually arriving 6 a.m. and all the stores are closed. But because they have a transit terminal there, right, they come and check. So pretty much imagine, like, beside a bus stop, right, there's like a store. But I don't think at that time there was buses. Anyways, this is his youth, right? So what happens is that he realizes that if he opens his store earlier than others at 6 a.m., he gets the customers in some sense. So pretty much it's like big fish is coming, but there is no food because the stores are closed. I mean, the idea should be clear by now. But anyways, what I'm saying is he suddenly took a step right forth. He risked something, and then he came to a situation where through his analysis and efforts, it turned into another risk, another opportunity. Anyways, at the age of 28, he accumulates a wealth for his time that it was as if he was a millionaire at that age. He had a car when nobody, like, had a car, or it was like the most expensive thing, right? Like, a car was like more expensive than a limousine. Do you know what I mean? Than a Bugatti. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like people were still on horses, and it's like, is that a car? Yo, this guy owns a car? What the? Like, the people are, their minds were. Anyways, great. He's going forth so far. And in it now, what happens next is from the town he was born in, near Turkey, he comes to Iran. He comes to Tehran. And he's this man in a village who suddenly accumulated wealth, right? And he comes to the capital. So imagine like a villager businessman coming to the city. When he comes to the city, his attitude is so bulldozer style that there was a time where he, years and years ago, he gathered me and all my cousins around, and he looked at all of us, and he's like, kids, always choose the greatest option. Honestly, he had a huge contribution to my sort of roar towards the advanced civilization. Mr. Within is not just one person alone. Mr. Within is the worlds he's walked in. I am everybody I have seen. We all are. So he goes to Iran. He goes to Iran, and I don't remember the exact sequence, but he starts a factory. Then I think he gets cheated or deceived, right? And then he goes bankrupt. Okay? When he goes bankrupt, the family, my mother was saying there was a time they were eating only potatoes, like lots of potatoes every day, you know? Until suddenly his vision, honestly, it was as if there are some people who are practicing confidence, and there are some people who've seen a vision ahead of the moment, and their confidence has a sort of eternal groundedness to it, because it's they're seeing the vision. He saw himself being not just an apprentice, but capable of being a store owner. He saw himself being capable of a factory owner. There was nobody telling him, yo man, good job, keep motivated, watch these YouTube videos. There was a power, there was a force within him that he was going towards, he was walking towards. Why do you think in the talks I say that humanity has been stripped of its honor? Because we're forgetting what the importance of good deeds equating collective greatness, the greatness of the legacy of all that we were. Because on some level, the all souls in manifestation and oh God Almighty, it seems the position that the human being has is just a strategic contribution, but the greatest strategic contribution comes from the heart. This world is an advanced system. I don't want to say I figured it out, but because I'm a designer, I see its design, I can explain it. And the way the design is that you're given two layers of simulation, but you have an original core. Okay, your soul is original. It was created by the original. So your soul has a connection to the uncaused cause of causality. The higher levels of life are not ego-oriented. They're not like I'm an individual driving in space-time continuum. It's not like that, ladies and gentlemen. That's nonsense, bad imagery. The next chapter of what sort of intelligence activity will take place on this planet is the relationship of an objective subjective species with a higher power that is in some sense equivalent to a coded entity suddenly not getting close to the coder. Something happens, you begin to feel the original. Now, in honor of my grandfather, I want to tell you that there was something within his mind, something within him that gave it his might. You see, guys, to be honest, I am not ashamed of anything the moment I have become a person who considers there's a system admin. Believe it or not, my ex got sexually assaulted a week ago, right? And a part of me wanted to, in some sense, it's like the devil in me wanted to come out. And there was just a moment where I was like, if I had created this world, I would have destroyed injustice instantly. But I have not created this world. I am a guest. And as the poet Rumi said, even though he's Sufi, my intention is just pure. Religion has something that spirituality can never give you. And I'm going to tell you a story I remembered my grandfather told me. I asked him why, like, I don't think I asked him. I think one day he was just explaining, right? He was explaining that he went to the mosque and he prayed to God, give me a loud voice. Guys, you don't understand how loud his voice was. His voice wasn't just loud audibly, it was also amped up with his intense presence. And he was not a bitter man, but he was, in some sense, again, I'm telling you, a giant stone column, as if holding the fort, yet not needing to be in it. Somehow, he manages to do something where it goes in the newspapers of Iran. And what he does is he gathers as the syndicate of all those in the leather industry. And he was telling me the story that he went into the meeting and he let all of them talk. He's like, let them all talk and you be the last person, say what they said plus what is your own. And at the end of the meeting, his loud voice and loud presence had brought some form of allegiance there. Now, let me tell you something amazing, right? His factory, his recovery, right, from his bankruptcy, he creates this incredible factory that, like, political people come to, like, for its grand opening. Right? And this is like at the point where my father and mother, they haven't even married yet. But my father's has been introduced to the family. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe they've been married then. I don't know. Maybe I was born and we were young. I don't remember. I don't know the exact detail. But I saw the video of, like, my young father beside my younger grandfather, and then the political figure coming in and having this sort of religious, kind of like welcoming, God willing moment in the video. So anyways, he sets up his factory, and his factory was this, like, these two giant, like, I think it was, I saw the video was capturing two, but they ended off selling bits of the factory, okay? But he had the video that showed the factory, showed these two giant barrels that were in some sense like creating, like doing part of like the process of creating leather, okay? And now what happens is, he also, I think I don't remember it exactly, so I'm not going to say it, but he had done something smart with how he was selling his leather to, like, he was in a manufacturer position, okay? He was selling it to those supplying. He had done something ingenious. I don't remember, but I don't remember it exactly. But he had spoken to store owners who were buying his leather, right? Businesses that were buying his leather from the factory in a way that was just super, like, it was a genius win-win, right? But anyways, synthetic leather comes in and the whole industry is in some sense executed. Then the factory remains, and again, as I mentioned, bits of it are sold. And eventually, like how it is that pretty much, I mean, I think everybody knows this. Oh, sorry guys, the car wasn't in park. Excuse me. I think everybody knows this, but pretty much in the development of a financial, let's say, portfolio, at some point, investments lead to real estate, and then it becomes an easier game. Okay? Now, what I'm trying to tell you is after the factory, I think he was involved in real estate and whatnot. There are many dimensions to everybody. Everybody. We must be realistic in the sense of acknowledging that we know and don't know everyone we have ever seen. Now, I remember him. I asked him once, what did you want from your kids? Honestly, I asked him this. You know, this might have been too Sherlock Holmes of me, but I interviewed my grandparents to see like how they had raised my uncles and aunts. You know, I don't know if that was My grandfather said, I just want kids. I wanted kids that help the society. Because his understanding was it was the society that had created, that had given him this ladder that he had climbed on his own. And I also, for at least my sake, want to mention the last conversation I had with him. The last conversation I had with my grandfather, his before he reached a point of dementia where he couldn't realize. I remember, guys, just being there. He was in his bedroom. I went there and I sat down and he looked at me and he said, Amin, I'm going. He said it like that. And at the time, I think I said something as if everything goes towards God or something, like it started from the uncaused, it goes to the uncaused. But that was his last conscious conversation with me. And then the next time, right after that, he couldn't move. So what happens when you reach the age of 93 is that your muscles decay. And dementia is, in some sense, the synapse is not working properly. The last time before I saw his body, my father came. It was like, I think 4 days ago before he passed away. My father and me, we went in. My father held his hand, kissed him and kissed him on the forehead and put his palm on his forehead. And my father just closed his eyes and he was blessing him. And I just put my hand on my father's shoulder, and I was just putting my attention on God, on cause, the ultimate power, the original power, the original authority. Guys, I just read the chat section. Yeah, there can be. But anyways, back to it. So my father was there, blessing him. I had my hand on my father's shoulder, just focused on God, just in some sense asking God to forgive and bless all of us. And then I held my grandfather's hand. And he held my hand, and he was conscious, and he was just staring at me. You know, I've had a bunch of people in this lifetime stare at me, but I could tell from the way they're staring at me, they're not just staring at me. Or it's not just the me I see that they're staring at. My beloved human species, there will come a time where we will bow to the world of forms, and in some sense the curtains will be pulled, and then we will go into the next. You don't understand. You know, how can I tell you? I broke down, but then a part of me couldn't break down anymore because I know the system admin is here. I just don't know what happens, and what one can do is pray. My wish for all the souls in this world is to get close to the light upon the light. You know, after that moment, I went on the balcony and I smoked a cigarette in that instant. And I just thought, you know, guys, my grandfather was he was blessed, but I remember I was walking in Thailand, in Phuket, and I had gone there for some martial art thing. I remember I was walking past the street and I looked to my right and I saw a very obese old lady on a table, as if she hadn't moved from there. And I thought to myself, as if, have you ever had a sort of cosmic rage, but you've directed it at your own self? I got so angry at how fucking slow I have been in this existence, in this lifetime. Yet I cannot get angry because it is the system admin's system. Guys, honestly, this whole day has concluded for me to just staring at this world. And I don't doubt the creator anymore. I am just looking at us, the human saga, the legacy of organisms that thought they were alone because they thought they were thoughts, but the thoughts come and go, you never were. We don't know. And what can we do here? It's Sherlock Holming the shit. Excuse me. Excuse me. Forgive me. Forgive me. It's similar to Sherlock Holming, like the whole species going into Sherlock Holmes mode and being like, what are the clues? And in my, at least one human beings, and this is where I would say this is my gift to my grandfather, if he's hearing this. I don't know. Your grandson's honest vision. I love everything because it's here somehow. But if this world is a simulation, we should not act like we are true beings at first. My beloved human species, to all humans that have ever lived, to all human beings alive, and to all human beings who will ever live. You will all enter this world as if you're being teleported, or as if you're landing in a specific capsule, in your own pod. The vision of the world ultimately is the decisions that is being made. All the actions contributed by all the human beings that have been here. So to honor the memory of all the human beings that have ever lived, we just need to care for what's going on. When we start to care for something, we have to understand it first. We have to understand it to see it completely, to be able to completely care for it. I have wondered about the efforts of all of us here. I have wondered about what to do with my existential circumstance, with all of our existential circumstance. A part of me was way more fascinated, to see what the advanced potential of the human effort is. You see, guys, we cannot ignore that we are temporarily here, okay? We're like candles. Everybody is a candle. You can hate people, love people, but all candles will melt. But the idea is to shine the light and for the candle to be positioned correctly. Because we're temporarily here, a part of us cannot avoid this attitude that's like, yo, man, it's like, I'm not a superhero, but it does feel correct that if I'm here for a limited while, I might as well try to solve the most complex task. This is the protocol I see. This is what I think. If, like, at least in this moment, my vision is that this is what 8 billion souls in a world, souls in a divine surveillance state, minds in a linguistic surveillance state, and bodies in an elemental surveillance state. Pretty much, this is what I would, if I was to appear, actually I won't say this. A human being is born, a human being, I think for, let's give it 30, up to the age of 30 is still bewildered by life. And when a person is bewildered by life, it's easy to bite into the desires of it. Okay? So what I'm saying is, it's as if like an example of at least one human being's life was like it took 30 years for a very unconscious, culturally programmed self-worshipping system to, in some sense, be uninstalled from my perspective, right? That means I was told spirituality is the way, but in some sense spirituality has blind spots, because spirituality is a sense of self-worship. So you see, it's like when you go to a museum, your foot is allowed to touch the floor, but your hands are not allowed to touch the gallery, right? The stuff there. The vision I have seen is human being runs laps around the sun, experiences level 1, which is physical objective reality, experiences level 2, which is subjective piloting of the objective reality, and then level 3 is realizing the subjective, what you think is the idea of you or you right now, and what you think has free will, actually it's the secret of God. What that means is that your secret source is unknown. Simply because the reason I think the soul is the secret of God is because the soul has never left God. It has always been in God's sight. Right now we are within the overwatch of the one and only ultimatum. My vision is simply this: human beings, pretty much you have to contact the system admin. You have to not be tempted and deceived, and pretty much you have to make a choice whether you want to utilize simulated power or you want to utilize original power. Original power does not come from an idea. Simulated power tends to be sparked subjectively. You know, my grandfather built a factory and the factories in the future will be in the sky. Guys, something you don't know, in Dubai, I registered a company called Sky Factory Trading. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's in the license, business license. And before I left, the idea was inspired. When I think about industry, when I think about the advancement of human civilization, because I'm someone who I access my mind cinematically behind my eyes, and if somebody told me, all right, tell me what the future looks like, I'd be like, I'm not a fortune teller. You shouldn't believe any of this, but this is the geometry that I can extract. This is like me Sherlock Holming it out as far as I can. Okay? And so I'm giving probabilities. I'm not telling you actualities. Okay? Everything that we see on Earth, on the land, there will come a moment where a sort of collective government, world government, not like this, not, I've explained it in other talks. Just Google civilization, not Google, search on YouTube Civilization 2.0. I mention the politics of that kind of civilization. It's the advancement of humanity. It's the answer to why we are here. We are here to, in some sense, physically exist. That means health, the minimalistic approach, and not getting tempted by the cultural program is a victorious avenue. It's like existence is designed like a video game inside a system, existential system. The system admin's not inside the video game, but it's watching it. Everything that's happening is in some sense coded by the system admin, the on-cause system admin. The artwork cannot be the artist. And so we, in this system, find ourselves, and I'm a Muslim sci-fi writer, so this is what I'm telling you, that it's equivalent to God is the system admin. There are moderators. They have authority over the simulation. And then we are members. I'm a member speaking to you. You're another member. Okay? God knows best. My vision was simply that an advanced civilization is the greatest argument. And I realized that God is the power source to that advancement. So the human being should acknowledge the system admin, which is the power of the original world. And you should not get tempted by moderators and members. The members should directly contact the system admin. There's two ways to live on in this place we're in. You either walk inside a simulation, or you realize all simulations are walking in a singular truth. How can a simulation exist without the truth? The truth is not something you even doubt if you consider reality as a simulation. The notion is, how do you go beyond the levels of this simulation? Level 3, this is the main point, is the human being realizing how much the body and mind are cyclical. Like, I don't want to say, like, as a soul, I'm tired of every day waking up and experiencing a new self. I'm not saying that's like it's like a purgatory of selfhood. But I'm telling you, it is unlike a purgatory, more like a majestic opportunity to contact the original system admin. That means they say, if you have a problem, contact the manufacturer. So what I would say to my beloved grandfather, to all the human beings that have ever lived and will live, the species cannot avoid greatness. We are the most advanced life forms on this planet. We have a responsibility to all manifestation, known and unknown, to uncover the mysteries of our world. The mysteries of our world point beyond subjective constrainism. Right? They point beyond subjective boundaries. What that means is level 3 is when you realize there's a higher power, and when you let go of the selves that you realize you're not, because even what you think is a self is just a faster change inside a slower change. That means you're changing faster than the world, so you feel there's meaning to it. So my vision is that I might not be alive when it's possible to build factories in the sky, but I can at least honor my grandfather and say that I am working towards that vision. And thank you for your great service. Thank you to the great service of all souls. The attention to the ultimate. That means it's like the next task of the human species is not everybody meditating and getting enlightened. That's not it. The next task of the whole species, of these 8 billion organisms that thought they were on a rock in the middle of nowhere, would realize their thoughts were their own hollow storytelling. So what ends up happening is that it's the great pilgrimage of 8 billion identities in the void towards the remembrance that we are souls in the presence of the ultimate, just by feeling that you are being watched by the greatest original power. It's just an amazing feeling. It feels like equivalent to having like advanced, like just like how it feels like for me being religious feels like just like being inside a giant robot. Like, you know, like in the movie Pacific Rim, Gundam Wing, Evangelion, that 02 thing. I am trying to just tell every person that will ever hear this that not only may God forgive us all and may God bless us all, but also that my dear species, the only option seems to build an advanced civilization that is updating faster than it's destroying itself. We need an assembly of the greatest designers on this planet to, in some sense, begin creating a new sector of civilization within civilization, or the earth is big, we start somewhere else. But the whole idea is that civilization 1.0 was on the earth, civilization 2.0 was in the sky. There's a majesty to existence. That means for me, of course, from one level, sure, my identity is grieving, but from another level, and I lost my grandfather, but from another level, I am seeing the magnificence of not just the roller coaster ride I'm on as a soul, and we each are on our own roller coaster rides, but on some level, the fascination of the divine administration, of the divine decree. That means why now? Why here? Why this? Why this angle of perception out of all the perceptions accessible to me? You see, there's something here in the works, something brilliant, something ingenious, something that every creative person was like, yeah, man, there's a rhythm there. So for me, I'm trying to get this species to acknowledge the system admin, to tap into original power and start using the power of the original world to build the most advanced civilization known to man. And of course, man attempts, but it is God's decision. And that's brilliant. Why? Why am I being British suddenly? Because there are those who wear crowns and there are those who wear the world as a crown. What that means is the story that our compass is towards the original. So that means if you truly love the original system administrator of this existential system you're in, where you also get access to a private experiential server, but I'm telling you that once level one is like survival. The purpose of level one is level one, which is the body is survival, and you realize at some point the candle melts, so its survival is inevitable. So short term, be healthy. The strategy long term, we don't survive forever. So there's that. And then we go to level two, the mind. When it comes to level two of the mind, level two of the mind, the purpose is service. And the reason is because the mind is not afraid of death. You go to deep sleep every night and you're like, man, I needed this good rest, But in some sense, the mind is not afraid of vanishing or changing. The mind doesn't know what to do with infinity, just like how the body doesn't know what to do with the finite, with finity. I think the effort is to align ourselves and to the original, and it's not like every person. Think of it this way: imagine we have a giant room, a pitch black room, and we bring a candle in one corner. So anybody in any area of that pitch black room will see the light, and they will have a distance to that light. Right? And what the free will is actually here to, in some sense, do, I find, the free will is here to, in some sense, notice its separation from the original world as a simulated entity. See, you were born from your parents, but the main force that is your sight, that is moving you now, that is not in an ultimately free zone. What I mean by this is like an employee doesn't have the same authority as a manager. The manager does not have the same authority as, let's say, the CEO or whatever. Sudden leap, but anyways. So what I'm trying to say is that for me, in honor of just everybody that's lived so far, I was like, what can we do now? Calling every human being that is here. If you exist and you're conscious enough to navigate a bicycle and or drive a car, you're capable enough to serve the advanced human, to be part of the advanced humanity. Our bodies are here to build something. Our minds are here to envision. That means the body is like a photograph, but 3D photograph. You know, the mind is a film. The soul is, at least to the mind and body, an unknown watcher. But when the soul realizes the presence of God, it's like suddenly a peasant looking behind it and seeing a king was standing there. It's that level of difference of feeling. So it's another way of saying to the secular audience, there's a transcendental agency on this rock. And there's a system administrator. The system administrator is not shaped, so it cannot be an overlord, it cannot be a form. Do you understand? God is not a shape. God is beyond the world, because anything that is in the world is caused and God is uncaused. Honestly, being religious is like wearing an Iron Man suit. But the AI that's running it is all conducted by the system admin. So, a message to all beings, I guess. Members, moderators, whatever. The great pilgrimage and piloting of all simulated manifestation towards the original begins now. We finally know what black holes are. Black holes are advanced civilizations that in some sense manage to enter this, just like Jules Verne went into the center of the earth. They managed to go into the center of the original world. We are no longer just animals on a floor, like in like roaming a ground. We are beings capable of noticing intelligent interaction levels. If you were to think what the highest intelligent interaction level, what the most advanced position of conception is, it will be the author of it. May God bless us all. My beloved grandfather, walk towards the light upon the light. Walk towards the one and only. There is no other way. And if you're a human being, you might be like, okay, so are you saying like we contact the manufacturer like a phone call? No, guys. It's more like you realize the limitations of your attention to yourself, self-worship, your attention to others, other worship, your attention to the world, world worship. And when you realize all these three categories that consist everything within human consciousness are simulated, and the human being has an ability to put its attention and concentration towards an uncaused focal point, the origin. Right, so in some sense, a black hole is when an advanced civilization, in some sense, walks through the portal of the transcendental agency, which is another way of saying that once bodies return back to the cosmos, back to the earth, once our mind returns back to the sky, our soul must just consider the authority of where we are, and to seek forgiveness and repentance is another way of saying that if you were truly in the presence of greatness, you would not try to challenge it. True greatness. You would be in awe of it, in the mighty presence, the almighty presence of the original. Do you understand? Some people call it God, some people call it system admin. To me, it's not even a concept anymore. It's just pretty much free will is like live simulated like, or move toward, get closer to the original. To get close to the original higher power is the victory of victories. Why? Because we went to the system admin before trying to act like an owner of the world. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. There is no partners to the original. So you cannot from this world go to the original. It's not form oriented. That means it's like, I'm not trying to crumble Plato's dreams of his world of forms, but on some level I am saying there is something so beyond that humanity is ignored. For the greatness of all of us, we must live like a human being, first of all, because we each have unique DNA. We're living like a human being that's never existed before until now, but also to live and choose not my grandfather said that you choose the greatest option. I will tell you, choose the most advanced option, which means 100% clarity. 100% clarity means resetting of your own value system, because you're seeing the original. The original is not administered by human form, so it's more like your free will is in the driver's seat, but it's an automated car. You should just let go of the wheel and let it happen, right? But when you become religious, you go into the passenger seat. You're still staring out the window. You're still in playing that role. More important than self-transcendence is playing our part. Because in some sense, to realize there's a system admin is like 8 billion method actors suddenly realizing they're not the characters they've been playing this whole time, and the director is watching, and the director is beyond the world, beyond the film set. And when the characters freak out, if they stop acting, they in some sense don't understand why they're here at all. You are not just designed for you. You are not just designed, for the species and for the greater categories that come. You are designed to, in some sense, how can I tell you? We are within a world where it is a performance review, and it is so obvious that to, in some sense, solve the hardest problem, to advance civilization, is the 8 billion win-win situation. But the most remarkable thing is, it's not just a man's decision. It can never be. There is like for the secular, I'll say, let's say transcendental agency. It's kind of like when you being spiritual in the simulation, and also being a materialist in the simulation, how do I tell you? It's kind of like if you knew the original was accessible, were you willing to risk the simulation? This would be equivalent to a human being that has no belief in any sort of intelligence beyond the human position. And this human being suddenly being like, wait a minute though, the scientific method tells me to experiment, to test. And the test is similar to a person realizing the limitations of level 1 and 2 and just looking at life and realizing I did not create the world. I did not put everything here. All these chess pieces in position were not moved by my hand. We are in the presence of a majestic intelligence, surpassing any organized formally confusion. So I am pretty much that human being saying, not only does 8 billion organisms on the planet need to acknowledge the original intelligence of their realm, but once they do, they will feel like they're in a world that is administered prior. It doesn't mean you know what's going to happen. It just means whatever happens, it's being administered. It's like an employee in Starbucks, right, having the safety and comfort of like that table, right? Of like, okay, this is like the area for employees only. That's the area for the customer. So anyways, guys, I wanted to thank you for listening. I wanted to praise the Almighty. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. May the original power, which is testing the simulation, be fascinated by how the simulated were honored by the original, not afraid. Rise, mankind, rise in the sight of the one and only. It could be as simple as you just being sincere and be like, okay, this higher power that has no form, no shape, it's beyond the world. This singularian focal point of a truth. By putting our attention on the light, we discover ourselves having new eyes, new sight. This is what it means by light upon the light. Sorry guys, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Holy Quran in Surah An-Nur, where it says God is the light upon lights, and that idea of the light of light, a light upon light. Until this moment, I just understood that what it means is that once the simulated notices the original, it realizes the original is what simulated it all. And when God is said all is all forgiving, it's a clue that truth is smarter than you. God bless. Thank you for listening. Guys, I said I was going to come to Discord, but it's late. Care for your loved ones. Any human being you see, you don't know how long they're here. And just for the sake of all the unborn human beings watching us right now, or the unborn future generations watching us right now, and even in the presence of the original admin, system admin, may the members smile in how they found greatness once they trusted the power that moved it. You see, it dispels fear. Why? Because there is a power greater in command. That means if you thought you were a lieutenant, this power is a general. If you thought you were a general, this power is an emperor. If you thought you were an emperor, this power is beyond. It's called a higher power. Why? Because the lower world is the simulated, desire-bound place. It's a bit like I don't want to say the world is sketchy, but I would like to say that I'm pretty much making the argument that I can see, and I think many also do, deep down, not with their eyes but with their hearts, that an advanced civilization and an advanced humanity and an advanced communication with the original power to be fearless by only fearing the author. Life first was a question mark, but once you open the box, you see it's a next level design system. It's a divine system. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Thank you for listening. And thank you, my beloved grandfather. I'm here because of you. Bless you, and may God guide you. Merci, Haji. Good night.